Hey, it's Steve and Christine Van Diest.
Hello. So glad that you guys are with us, whether live or on recording. We're excited that you're here.
We are excited to talk about sex and hormones. This is my first cameo in Christine's Wellness Club boot camp, and I'm excited to be here on a fun and oftentimes confusing and emotional and scary topic, sex and hormones.
We actually were at a restaurant and we told the waiter, that we had to leave to get ready for our webinar. He's like, "What's the webinar?" We like sex and hormones. He's like, "What? Can I come? Can I be invited?" So
A
I
young
think it
guy.
is a topic of interest for sure.
Who are we and why do we think we're qualified to speak on this topic? Well, we've been married 30 years and it wasn't always easy. And we are in our young 50s, 52 and 53. I am 53 in like 7 weeks, and we just got back celebrating Christine's 53rd. But there's been a lot of up and downs, and our bodies have changed, our relationship has changed, and also dealing with the past has changed. So we're going to talk about three things in this area, but that's who we are. And we're
Mhm.
having the time of our life now. We're almost empty nesters. And so is it worth talking about this issue? I wish someone talked to us about it 20
Mhm.
years ago, because I think it's worth it fighting through it and the challenges that our bodies go through and
Mhm.
our relationships and our head.
And I would say, to me, the word that comes to mind is normalize. I think sometimes we it was private. Like I don't think I got much education growing up, but I think now with our adult kids, we have two married sons. It's just the normalizing the changes and the struggles with husband and wife, but also hormones, perimenopause, I'm in menopause, all the changes that come with that, just normalizing it, not making it such a scary topic to talk about, and being very vulnerable, but also transparent and in good, healthy ways.
Are we exhaustive in this topic? No. Are we trained and educated? No, not formally, but a lot of experiences, a lot of research, and a lot of studying. And so there's really three things that we see as affecting our sexual intimacy as long-term married couples. And those three are,
Biological, physiological, and we said social and spiritual,
let me correct you on the second one.
psychological.
Biological, psychological, and social and spiritual. Biological, it's what's going on with our bodies. And I think the first one to address, and this is the one we would say go see a medical professional. If there's biological issues, erectile dysfunction, vaginal dryness, pain, these are areas that aren't just going to be covered by a lubricant or something, a nutrition mix. It might need some professional help. So in some areas, if it's just not feeling right, things aren't working biologically, go ask for help.
Mhm. And I think too, it goes back to that it should be pleasurable. And if there's pain, obviously pain just changes the whole dynamic of the history, the stories that you keep telling yourself, I can't do this again, it's going to be painful. So it just leads itself down to, I don't want to do it anymore. And so it really changes the relationship and yeah, the sexual intimacy between couples. So definitely that's something to not keep putting off, but really taking care of.
So in this hormone area, how do hormones affect us biologically?
Oh gosh, I mean, it depends on when you're talking to a woman and whatever stage she is, because when you think of like progesterone, estrogen, testosterone, we have these hormones, these sex hormones, and at different stages they are changing. So again, perimenopause, menopause. Menopause is when it's been a full calendar year that you have not had a single cycle, not, and so I'm well past that. And anything prior to that, when you start seeing changes in your cycle, is perimenopause, and that could go on for 10 to 15 years. So it's just a long time of, depending what stage of life you're in, kids, small kids, what's going on.
And for guys, it happens to us as well. All three of those are existing in us. And I've watched my testosterone levels change as I've gotten to about 53. Medical professions like, oh, this is in the safe realm. But as you begin to learn your own body, you'll feel also a little bit what's going on. Is energy level? Am I losing fat? Am I building muscle? But also, is my sex drive going away?
I would say for women, one thing I get often is the belly fat. And so as we age, what's happening is we continue to, I think in our late 40s and early 50s is when we start settling into our lifestyle habits, how we eat, how we drink, movement. Are we still doing exercise? We're not in our 20s anymore. So how are we navigating our lifestyle? And if we haven't changed anything, then our bodies are going to show that. And so body fat distribution, when we are in when we lose estrogen, it's just going to be now in our belly, a lot of stress there too. But maybe in our 20s, extra fat could have been displaced somewhere else on our body. So there's a lot of physical changes that are happening when our estrogen decreases. And that's where we really have to say, choose your heart. We have to decide if we want to, that longevity piece and to feel good. We've got to really take a look at our diet, supplementation, exercise, sleep, stress. It was interesting. I read something about stress. It said, anytime the stress hormones are high, your sex hormones go low, especially progesterone. And progesterone is the one that helps with fertility. It's anti-anxiety, anti-depressant. So, the mommies, we feel good when we're pregnant and like a ton of progesterone. It's like that happiness and elated and joyful. There's a lot of progesterone going on in our bodies at that point. So yes, it's changing. Our bodies are affected for sure.
And for guys, I think looking at 53, yes, my testosterone levels are low, but there's a decision that I think when you look at social media and it's all saying get your T levels and it's easy to get ripped and you'll have a sex drive, you'll be crazy like a 20-year-old. But there's a decision to make. You're either going to be put on this for the rest of your life, like a creatine, because as soon as you exit most of them, you're going to drop and go back. So you have to make a decision. Do I want to go down this route? And for those that have questionable, maybe history of prostate cancer, those are other concerns as well, because you don't want to feed that cancer. But I want to take a look at building muscle mass. I'm not as lean as I used to be, but I have more muscle mass because it's one of the things I want to add on as I age. I want to stay strong. I want to keep my core strong. I want to keep my legs strong. And I think another major effector that affects us hormonally, which then does affect us sexually, is am I getting sleep? So one of my habits that I track is, am I getting at least 7 hours of sleep? And then I can notice directly to sexual intimacy, to pleasure, is how much alcohol. Some people say, well, I like to have a glass of alcohol because it lowers my inhibitions. But also there's a risk if you had too much there's less sensitivity. So I think you've got to be aware and you're going to know where that mark is. And I would say if you're concerned and you're seeing some of the side effects in sexual intimacy, just remove it and work on other things later on. We talk about psychological and social and spiritual. Work on some other areas that can help you with your inhibitions or fears instead of using alcohol as the crux. Age has an effect, but also your supplementation. And so other substances. So I take multiple things to help me control hormones. I take all my immunity items, but I take things to help prostate health, cholesterol, because I've got family of cholesterol issue, high blood pressure issues. I'm also watching what I eat. There's multiple times that Christine takes many clients, including myself, through a healthy veggie and fruit, high dense, nutrient dense cleanses. And I have to be honest, it's the best I sleep, and sometimes it's the best sex we have because we're alive and vibrant and there's nothing affecting us.
Yeah, it's I think all our body is processing all the right things. It's really healthy. It's detoxed well. It's all the engines are firing probably in a healthy way,
Yeah.
I guess. And it's interesting too, going back to the sex hormone estrogen, I think this is where every woman is different. I'm identical twin sister. I'm different from my sister. And so one thing might work for one woman, may not work for another. And there's all these other things going on in our bodies that we have to take into account. But I will say that estrogen levels affect, going back to physiologically and just what's happening in our bodies. But just our clitoris atrophies, thin, dry, painful, blood flow slows down, nerves respond differently. And so again, back to that dryness, discomfort, it keeps your body from responding. Therefore, it halts the intimacy, it halts the sexual experience. And it's another negative story that you're dealing with that adds to why I don't enjoy sex per se. Also, estrogen is anti-inflammatory. So sometimes you see people talk about frozen shoulders when they're older. There's a lot of just joint pain. So again, what Steve had mentioned, there are some things that are in my non-negotiable nutritionally that I want to make sure as I'm aging, my body just has less of. So I want to add in some really good collagen, really good healthy protein, other things to help my healthy joints and gut health so that my estrogen is what I do have is really being balanced in my body.
Okay.
So there's not effects.
Biological.
Biological.
That
There's a
was
lot to go into.
quick. You
Yeah.
could probably get a master's degree on this.
We
There's
could
some
just talk about that.
There's experts on this, and we could go on forever for weeks on. The second one, though, is, and I think these three are a trifecta. You can fix biological issues, but if we don't deal with some of our psychological things, such as Christine, psychologically, that can hinder sexual intimacy.
Well, I think it's like stress, trauma, shame
Yeah.
is things that we think of.
What's going on in here that almost detaches us from
Yes.
our body, our biological responses. And for us, early on at year 13, there was some trauma, immediate trauma between us, as well as trauma from the past that we had to work through before sexual intimacy was even on the table, because we know it was holding us back.
Yeah.
And so,
and that's where you do need to seek someone that is a professional in this, because this is something you want to take care of and you really want to dive into and get to the root.
And stress, guys. I went through ups and downs of business in my career. I'm on my third business. And oftentimes we're taking this in and we're holding it. And what does that do? Well, it stores belly fat. Then it changes our biological pieces of what we're doing because we're holding cortisols high. But also it's going to then how we respond and what we do. And one thing we didn't say at the very beginning, there's always a high and low desire in a couple. Neither is incorrect, neither is right. But if it's just the human naturalness, it's not always guys, but generally it is.
Even if both people think they're high, someone will be higher, right?
Exactly.
Or low, someone will be lower.
And so we're always, it's typically not equal, but neither is wrong or right. And it may change over a course of lifetime. There's been at times where Christine's been higher desire over me. Now, is that generally speaking, males are typically higher desire? Yes, because there's that high testosterone, but it can go either way. So I think it's just also recognizing that we're different. And I think God's given us that differentness so that we have to work through those things to be able to talk and communicate. And I think that leads us to the third area, social and spiritual.
Right. And I think too, when we say with social and spiritual, we'll go with I feel like we didn't share much about that too.
The shame piece?
Yeah. Yeah. But I think that ties into the social and spiritual. So I grew up in a Christian home. And so I think I did not hear much from my parents and others. And it was almost like read this book and go on. I think there's a purity culture where it just was, you don't have sex, you don't have, obviously,
sex is the end all of singleness. And if you ruin it, then you're a ruined person.
Yeah.
And so I think there's an element, we bring those stories, those shame pieces into our relationship and it affects us.
Right. And so I think this goes into, depending on whoever's listening to this, whatever your faith background is and what you believe, you're going to think either you're going to agree with us or disagree with us, either way. But there's a part of that culture of, I think for me, not realizing to understand I want to be proactive in sex and being sexually active in a marriage, not outside of marriage, but in my marriage, that I want to take not a back seat, but really understand giving and receiving pleasure, giving pleasure, and that is okay. God made sex, God made it to be good and created us in that way. And understanding that, I had to really work through a lot of trauma, shame, move on.
It's understanding who created it and why it's so amazing. And Christina already said one of these funny words that everybody's afraid to say, clitoris, but it's got like one intended purpose, pleasure.
Right.
It doesn't do anything else. And so there's a piece there. Then you talk about social and how we affect in the social world, social media, movies. Movies is I see you, I'm passionate, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Everybody had orgasms and it was wonderful, it was perfectly timed, and it's clean.
Yeah.
Yet that can also affect us socially. And then
I think adding to that, then there's this unrealistic beauty standard. And so I think for women, what I didn't share is sometimes my high-low desire or how I felt in, sexually was related to my body image, how I saw myself, how I perceived Steve saw me. He can say my body looks beautiful, but in my head, if I feel like, well, I don't like where my belly's looking, I certainly don't like you touching me because I don't feel sexy. So then therefore I don't enjoy it. I'm more preoccupied with how I look and feel about my body image. And so I think for a lot of women, we can get stuck on that. And it goes back to the beauty standard, what we see in the movies.
And a damaging one in the secular world and faith world is pornography.
Mhm.
It's now scientists and psychologists are saying pornography is damaging. It gives us a false picture. It creates wrong images. There's great correlation between pornography and erectile dysfunction. And so I think being aware of some of these things socially, but even just simple things, Facebook, where it's non-pornography and it's just comparing somebody else's life to us. So there's a one up and one down, and maybe their marriage is better than ours.
Mhm.
They must be having more sex than us. And I think that is all damaging.
How would you say, I so agree. And this, again, this could be a whole nother topic on just that. How would you approach your partner about sex? You know what I mean? When you feel like this is great. Maybe one of you watches this and is like, oh, I really want my spouse to listen to this. How do you do that? What would you do?
I love Dr. David Schnark. He passed away a few years ago, author, therapist. And he said, as a summary, he would use sex as the bloodhound to sniff out other issues in a marriage. And so I think as we talk about this, sex is the entry point, and then we start figuring out some things psychologically. Is there trauma? What's keeping me? Can I stare at Christine in the eyes and be fully known? But I think it's uncovering some things, but maybe it uncovers just some biological issues. Sex is opening up, going, maybe I'm just unhealthy and I need to work out more. And that's why my sex life isn't good, but it opens the door to other areas. And then also sex can then open up issues between us. You start learning on how to approach this. So I think how do you talk about it? One, you have to really hold solid to yourself and realizing I have to take care of myself. Her job is not to sexually satisfy me, and mine necessarily isn't necessarily to satisfy her. It's both. And I think there's a conversation, but there's a conversation between spouses to want to grow in these three areas. Christine's significantly more fit than me, but it's something I haven't given up on. And so even though I've had torn shoulders, torn knees, I broke my back, it's still part of my daily rhythm to be eating healthy and working out and taking supplementation because I want to grow old with her. And I want to continue to be sexually active with her because it's not meant to get worse. I think it's meant to get better.
I think we threw that question at the beginning, does sex get better as you age? And we would say
Yes.
yes. Yes, very much so. Because I think so much of the confidence and the clarity of I know my identity, value, and worth is not based on what he sees me, thinks of me. It's solid, same as him. And also just being confident in who we are. Perfectionism has come down. I don't need to be this perfect expert, this self and
I'm fully known
how we
and
see each other.
and she chooses me now. I don't need her anymore, but I want her.
Yeah.
And so what are the next steps?
I would say yes. When we talk about biologically, midlife is a great time to clean habits up. I think, like I said earlier, in our late 40s and 50s, we really start establishing our habits, how we eat, walk, exercise, all the things. But you can shake things up. And again, choosing the hard. Is my goal lifespan, health span that I really feel good, younger, longer? Then I need to change things up. Am I not in an exercise routine? Do I need to really clean up my diet? Do I need to sleep more? Do I need to lower stress? So all those biological, nutritional things are important.
And so I think it's finding somebody in your area, or it's finding someone like Christine, a functional nutritionist that helps people, that does this, walks people through resets. And I think that's under the biological. Some cases we just need to get some blood work and also figure out, okay, Mr. Doctor, traditional Western medicine, or even maybe going some Eastern, I need help.
Yeah, and poke your doctor, ask lots of questions and get a full panel, full thyroid panel, hormone panel, maybe adrenal and cortisol levels, and check and see where you're at if you feel like there's chronic stress, because that really can change your hormone levels, belly fat, all the things.
Okay. Secondly, psychologically, you may need just to get a therapist, a counselor, somebody to deal with some deeper stuff. That's happened to us. I feel like we got our PhD in counseling and therapy because we spent so much money working through our stuff individually.
We were really good students.
And working through this, but it was worth it. And it was a hard 7 to 10 years, but now at year 30 and really years 22 on, it's completely worth it. So I'm really grateful there. But also you might just need a coach. I'm an executive coach. I'm a life coach. I walk business owners through helping grow businesses, but I do a lot of personal. And Christine is also a coach, and she meets with people one-on-one for mindset, habits, and it's just talking through these scenarios. So I encourage you in the psychological areas, get some help with what's going on inside here. And then thirdly, social and
Spiritual.
spiritually,
Yeah.
it's finding a group of people.
Yeah, a tribe. I mean, a couple of things that we are doing right now is we have our free download of our 10 top romance resources, all the things.
These are the things that we've used over the last 5 to 10 years
We didn't
that
put
create some
everything on it, but
some creativity, some love things, some ideas, some resources that we've learned from, things our
Mhm.
mindset pieces that we've worked with.
And in that top 10, one of them is a marriage course. And so Steve and I lead, we're actually facilitating starting the end of this month, but it's 7 weeks long. It's free. It's
It's
so well
online,
done. It's
safe.
online and it's 7 weeks and it's so well done. So if you're interested, message us. We'd love to send you the invite to join us at the end of this month.
And to be honest, I'm already part of a men's cohort that I don't lead, but I'm part of it. And these are the things that we talk about. How can we become healthy? Some of it has to do with sexual intimacy, but I'd say find a cohort or a mastermind. Christine's launching women's masterminds for women in their 40s and 50s mostly. But to walk through, can we be honest about what's going on inside, up here, and also here? And I think as you work on those three areas, you'll begin to see the shift
Yeah.
sexually. And but it took some time, but we're
Yeah.
really grateful we worked through it.
Yeah.
So if you have any questions, you'll find this video on YouTube, but you can leave comments, you can DM Christine, you can email Christine at your email, but you'll find us. But download the ebook, reach out if you need some of those areas and you need help biologically, psychologically, and socially and spiritually.